What if the disrespect you face is not a sign of your weakness, but proof of your growth? What if the silence you choose is more powerful than any words you could speak? And what if the boundaries you set are the keys to the peace you've been searching for? You see, before you ever learn how to deal with people who don't respect you, you need to understand one truth changes everything. It's not about them. It's never been about them. It's about you. It's about knowing who you are and whose you are. Because the moment you let someone's opinion define your worth, you've already given them more power than they deserve. You can spend your whole life trying to gain the respect of people who were never meant to value you in the first place. You can twist yourself into 1,000 versions trying to be good enough, kind enough, quiet enough, or bold enough. And in the end, they'll still find a reason to look past you. Because when someone doesn't respect you, it's not always a reflection of your flaws. It's often a mirror of their own brokenness. And you can't fix. But you've got to fix what's in you. It's your job. It's where the real work is. When people ignore you, belittle you, or make you feel invisible, don't rush to prove them wrong. Don't shrink or shout or retaliate. First, remind yourself of your identity. You were not created to be validated by man. You were created with worth already built in. No words, no silence, no betrayal, no rejection can reduce what has been divinely declared over your life. There's a peace comes when you stop chasing the approval of those who don't even respect themselves. There's a freedom settles in your soul when you realize you're not here to convince anyone to see your value. You're here to walk in it. You're here to carry it quietly, humbly, boldly. Some of you are hurting right now because someone close to you doesn't respect you. Maybe it's a family member who constantly undermines you. Maybe it's a friend who only shows up when they need something. Maybe it's someone you loved who left you feeling like you were never enough. And the enemy whispers to you in those moments, saying, "See, you don't matter. You're not worthy." But I want to tell you something will shake the lies the enemy has spoken. You do matter. You were made in the image of the Almighty. You were formed with purpose. You were not an accident. You are not a mistake. When people fail to recognize your worth, don't let confusion become your identity. Don't adopt their blindness as your mirror. Stand firm in the truth. Your worth is not determined by applause or approval. It's anchored in something deeper, eternal, and unshakable. You know what I've learned? People can only respect others to the level they respect themselves. It's why some folks will never speak kindly to you because they haven't learned how to speak kindly to themselves. Is why some people will diminish your dreams because they gave up on their own. It's why some people will always find fault with you because they can't bear to confront their own failures. And if you don't understand your worth, you'll think their disrespect means you've done something wrong. But you haven't. You've outgrown the space where you were no longer valued. It's not a curse. It's a calling. So what do you do when people don't respect you? You get still. You get quiet. You remind yourself you are not living for man's validation. You are living for a purpose greater than opinions. You speak to your soul and say, "I am enough," not because they say so, but because I was fearfully and wonderfully made. You keep walking even when they laugh. You keep standing even when they doubt. You keep shining even when they try to dim your light. And listen to me closely. Don't let disrespect make you bitter. Let it make you better. Let it refine you, not define you. Let it be the evidence you are growing beyond what they can handle. Not everyone will celebrate you. Not everyone will understand you. And's okay. Because when you truly know your worth, you no longer feel the need to be understood by everyone. You need to be faithful to what you've been given. When someone doesn't respect you, you don't fight them. You don't chase them. You don't beg them. You rise. You heal. You hold your head high, not in arrogance, but in assurance. You live in such a way their disrespect becomes irrelevant, because your worth was never up for debate. When someone disrespects you, the first instinct is to react. Sting, sharp insult, cold shoulder. It hits you deep. And your emotions rise like a wave, don't they? You feel the heat in your chest, the tightness in your jaw. Maybe you want to shout back. Maybe you want to cut them down with words as sharp. Maybe you want them to feel what they made you feel. But I want to tell you something could change everything. Don't react emotionally. Respond spiritually. You see, there is a difference. A reaction is instant. It's triggered. It's born out of pain, out of anger, out of fear. But a response is chosen, it's measured. It comes not from your feelings, but from your faith. When someone disrespects you, the enemy wants you to react out of your flesh, but God wants you to respond out of your spirit. Let me tell you, it takes far more strength to stay silent in peace than it does to speak in rage. It takes far more courage to walk away than it does to strike back. Because silence, when it's rooted in spiritual discernment, is not weakness. It's wisdom. Some people think being quiet means being passive. Number silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes it's protection. And sometimes it's the thing allows God to step in and do what only He can do. The world will tell you if someone disrespects you, you have to clap back. If someone talks down to you, you better talk louder. If someone shows you dishonor, you better show them who's boss. But the world is loud because it's insecure. The Spirit of God is quiet because it's sure. When you know who you are, when you're walking in truth, when you're grounded in grace, you don't need to prove a thing. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You let your character speak louder than your emotions. There will be moments in life when you are misjudged, overlooked, mistreated. There will be times when people twist your words or question your intentions. And if you're not rooted, you'll react. You'll lash out. You'll waste time and energy trying to explain yourself to people who were never listening. But when your soul is anchored in God, you begin to realize every battle isn't yours to fight. Some of them belong to the Lord. I've met people who carry years of anger in their hearts, not because they were weak, but because they never learned how to let go. They never learned how to respond spiritually. They held on to every slight, every insult, every form of disrespect, and it poisoned their peace. It robbed them of their joy. You cannot live free if you're chained to every offense. You cannot walk in purpose if you stop at every insult. So what do you do when the urge to react is strong? You pause, you take a breath, and you pray, not for revenge, but for release. You ask God to give you clarity in your silence. You ask Him to show you what's worth your attention. And you ask Him to take care of what's out of your control. You don't need to speak every time someone speaks against you. You don't need to correct every lie. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing and let the truth rise on its own. Because truth doesn't need a defender. It needs time. And let me say this. Responding spiritually doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. No, It means you walk away with dignity. It means you set boundaries with grace. It means you keep your heart clean while protecting your space. You don't need to curse someone to protect your peace. You don't need to hate someone to let them go. The Lord will fight your battles if you give Him room. I want you to understand something deep tonight. When you respond spiritually, you are not being passive. You are taking a higher road. You are choosing to live by faith and not by impulse. You are choosing to trust God sees what was done, and He will handle what your hands cannot. Strength is rare, power is holy. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't go low. Go higher in thought, higher in grace, higher in wisdom. Look up, not around. Because your reaction may win the moment, but your spiritual response will win the war. Let your peace confuse them. Let your calm disarm them. Let your silence preach a sermon they didn't expect to hear. There comes a time when talking doesn't work anymore. You've tried explaining. You've tried asking. You've tried giving chances. And yet, they still don't change. They still treat you like your voice doesn't matter. They still cross the lines you've asked them not to. And when you need to understand the power of boundaries. Not loud ones, not dramatic ones, but quiet, firm, clear boundaries. Set not in anger, but in wisdom. You don't need to make an announcement when you begin to protect your peace. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to explain it. And you surely don't need anyone's permission. Because when someone has shown you repeatedly they don't respect your presence, you have every right to protect your absence. And you do by stepping back quietly, calmly, and prayerfully. We've been taught love always means staying close, always being available, always giving another chance. But love, real love, is not the same as access. Because you care for someone doesn't mean they get to mistreat you. Because you've known them for years doesn't mean they've earned the right to dishonor you again. And because you've forgiven them doesn't mean they get to stay in the same place in your life. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates to protect what's sacred within. Your peace is sacred. Your purpose is sacred. Your mind, your emotions, your spirit, they are too valuable to be open to chaos and disrespect. When you start realizing you don't respond with bitterness, you respond with boundaries, and not every boundary has to be spoken. Some are simply lived. There's strength in silence. There's clarity in space. And sometimes the only way people will ever recognize your worth is when they feel the absence of your presence. It's not about revenge. It's not about being cold or distant or punishing anyone. It's about understanding you can't force people to respect what they're not ready to value. You can't make someone treat you better by staying close while they treat you worse. I've seen people stay in toxic spaces for years, hoping if they love harder, pray longer, serve more, or stay silent, the disrespect will stop. But the longer you ignore the disrespect, the louder the enemy gets. The more you tolerate what tears you down, the weaker your spirit becomes. God never called you to stay where you are constantly dishonored. He didn't create you to be someone's emotional punching bag. He called you to live in peace, to walk in love, and to guard your heart. And sometimes guarding your heart means guarding your space. You don't need to slam the door. You need to close it gently and walk away. Is it? No drama, no noise, peace. When you begin to set quiet boundaries, some people will accuse you of changing. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you're cold. But let me tell you, there is nothing cold about protecting your soul. There is nothing wrong with stepping away from people who repeatedly show you they don't care about the damage they cause. And listen, some people will test you. They'll keep pushing to see how far they can go. And every time you allow them to cross line without consequence, they learn your words are empty. But when you begin to move differently, when you stop explaining and start adjusting, when you stop warning and start walking, they begin to realize they can no longer take your presence for granted. I know it's not easy, especially when it's someone you love, someone you've prayed for, someone you've believed in. But God didn't call you to be loyal to pain. He called you to be faithful to your purpose, and means sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is walk away in peace and let God deal with what your words couldn't fix. You are not being selfish by protecting your peace. You are not being unkind by stepping away from disrespect. You are being wise. You are being obedient. You are choosing to trust God with your heart rather than handing it to people who don't know how to hold it. It's maturity, it's faith, it's growth. So, if they don't call like they used to, if they don't check in, if they don't show up for you, don't chase, don't beg. Don't try to force a connection disrespects your soul. Adjust. Set the boundary. Keep your peace. And let your silence say what your words no longer need to. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things we're called to do. Not because we're weak, but because we've been wounded. When someone disrespects you, when they betray you, insult you, or make you feel less than who you are, wound runs deep. It's not the words they spoke, it's how they made you feel invisible. It's the trust they broke, the dignity they ignored, and the pain they walked away from, as if it never mattered. And in those moments, forgiveness feels impossible. But I want to speak to your heart tonight, because forgiveness is not about saying what they did was right. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is about freedom, your freedom. It's not something you do for them. It's something you do so you can breathe again, so you can sleep at night without carrying the weight of someone else's wrongdoing. You see, when you hold on to unforgiveness, you're not protecting yourself. You're imprisoning yourself. Bitterness, anger, quiet rage you try to bury deep inside. It doesn't stay buried. It shows up in your relationships. It shows up in your words. It steals your joy. It poisons your perspective. And slowly, without even realizing it, you start becoming what they were. Cold, guarded, angry. But it's not who you are. It's not who God made you to be. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget the pain. Some things are too deep to ever fully forget. But it means you remember it differently. You don't carry it like a sword anymore. You carry it like a scar. And scars aren't signs of defeat. Scars are signs you survived. Scars are proof the wound didn't win. What they did to break you didn't stop you. There are lessons in every heartbreak. There is wisdom in every betrayal. And if you let God work in your pain, He will turn it into power. But you have to let go of the offense. You have to release the need for revenge. You have to stop rehearsing the moment they hurt you over and over in your mind. Because as long as you keep reliving the hurt, you keep reopening the wound. And God wants to heal it. Some of you are still waiting for an apology. Still waiting for them to admit they were wrong. Still hoping they'll come back and make things right. But let me tell you, your healing cannot be held hostage by someone else's repentance. If they never say sorry, you can still forgive. If they never admit what they did, you can still move on. Because forgiveness is not about them. It's about you choosing to live free. Don't waste your life trying to make someone feel the pain they caused you. Don't get stuck in the cycle of bitterness. Only drains your spirit. There's too much ahead of you to be chained to what's behind you. And the more you try to punish them in your heart, the more you punish yourself. Because every time you replay what happened, you relive what happened. But when you forgive, you take the power back. You're not saying they were right. You're saying you're done letting them hold space in your heart. Now, doesn't mean you let them back in. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. It's not restoration. Forgiveness is what happens in your heart. Reconciliation requires two changed people. And if they haven't changed, if they're still disrespectful, still dishonoring, still unsafe, then your boundary is still necessary. You can forgive and still walk away. You can forgive and still say, "You don't belong in my circle anymore." Letting go doesn't mean you forget the lesson. No, the lesson is part of your growth. The pain taught you what self-respect looks like. It taught you to stop tolerating what doesn't align with your purpose. It taught you peace is too expensive to be negotiated. Keep the lesson. Release the bitterness. I've seen too many people waste years holding grudges, thinking if they let go, they'll lose something. But what they don't see is the longer they hold on to the hurt, the more they lose themselves. Don't let someone who doesn't even respect you keep you from becoming who God called you to be. Don't let the pain they cause stop the healing God wants to give. You don't have to carry weight anymore. Tonight, make a decision, not for them, but for you. Say, "I forgive you," not because you earned it, not because you apologized, but because I refuse to let your actions poison my peace. I forgive you not so we can go back to how things were, but so I can finally move forward into what God has for me. Let go of the offense, keep the wisdom, and walk in freedom. When someone disrespects you, there's a voice inside says, "You've got to show them who you are." Pride rises up. Hurt demands a reaction. You want to say something. You want to prove something. You want to fight back. Not because you're weak, but because you're tired of being overlooked, misunderstood, and dismissed. But friend, the truth is, when you start to rise in purpose, in maturity, and in grace, you no longer fight every battle calls your name. You start choosing peace over probing. You start learning not every insult needs an answer, and not every opinion deserves your energy. You were never created to shrink down to someone else's level to defend your worth. You don't need to stoop to pettiness in order to feel powerful. You don't have to return the same disrespect was given to you. The world will try to bait you into noise. The enemy will try to pull you into conflict, hoping you'll ruin your own peace by fighting shadows. But when your spirit is anchored, when your heart is rooted in truth, you rise above it. Not because you're better than them, but because you know better. There's a dignity comes with spiritual maturity, a stillness, a steadiness. It's the strength doesn't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to defend yourself to people who've already made up their minds. You don't need to explain yourself to those who've chosen not to understand you. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing and keep moving forward. Not out of pride, but out of wisdom. Out of knowing your purpose is too precious to be interrupted by small-minded games. We live in a world where everybody wants to clap back. Everybody wants to expose, to cancel, to one-up, to get the last word. But none of brings peace, none of brings healing, none of restores your dignity. It drains your soul. But when you choose to elevate yourself, when you choose to rise above the insult, above the sarcasm, above the gossip, you step into a higher realm of living. Is not weakness, is power under control, is strength wrapped in humility. You don't need the last word. You need the right heart. You don't need their approval. You need God's direction. And let me tell you, God can handle things in ways your anger never will. He sees what was said in secret. He hears the words were whispered behind your back. And while you're tempted to retaliate, He's calling you to rise. He's calling you to let your actions speak, to let your consistency, your integrity, your fruit speak louder than anything they said about you. You were not built to live in the mud. You were not designed to dwell in drama. You were made to soar. And eagles don't chase flies. When you elevate yourself, you start to see things differently. You start to realize not everything needs your reaction, because not everything is worthy of your attention. Some things are sent to distract you. Some arguments are traps. And if you step into them, you may win the argument, but lose your peace, lose your joy, lose your focus. Don't trade your destiny for a moment of pride. I know it hurts to be disrespected. I know it stings to be talked down to, especially when you've done nothing but give love and serve. But hear me, God sees what you've done in silence. He sees the restraint you've shown. He sees the tears you cried behind closed doors. And He's not ignoring your pain. He's preparing your reward. He's fighting for you in ways you can't see. And if you stay faithful, if you keep rising above the noise, He will honor you in ways silence every critic without you saying a word. Your character is your defense. Your peace is your protest. Your faithfulness is your answer. So stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Stop exhausting yourself trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Rise, keep walking, keep building, keep shining. Because the more you grow, the quieter you'll become. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because you'll understand the view from above isn't crowded. And not everyone can go where you're headed. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them throw their shade. And you keep your head up. You keep your heart clean. You keep your spirit right. Because you don't need to shout to prove your strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is smile, stay silent, and walk in purpose. There's a peace comes when you finally understand what's not yours to carry. And I want you to know other people's disrespect, their behavior, their decisions, their silence is not your burden, is not your weight. You can't fix what you didn't break. You can't heal someone who refuses to admit they're hurting. And no matter how hard you try, you can't make someone respect you if their heart is not ready to honor what God has placed inside of you. Some of you are living in turmoil right now because you're trying to control. Things are far outside your reach. You're walking around with knots in your stomach, replaying conversations, rewriting moments, wondering if you could have said something differently, done something better. But weight will crush you if you keep carrying it. Pressure was never meant to be yours. Burden belongs to God. Let me tell you something, it'll free you if you let it sink in. When you've done all you can, when your words have been kind, your efforts sincere, your heart open, your intentions pure, and someone still disrespects you, mistreats you, or walks away, you're not the failure. You're not the problem, and you're not the fixer. You've got to release it to God, because what you cannot change, He can transform. What you cannot reach, He can touch. What you cannot understand, He already sees clearly. There's a line we cross when we try to do what only God can do. Line gets blurry sometimes, especially when our heart is invested. We think, if I keep trying, maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll see my worth. Maybe they'll come back and apologize. Maybe they'll treat me right this time. But here's the truth. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll stay the same. Maybe they'll never see it. And it's where trust comes in. Not trust in them. Trust in God. You can't live your life holding your breath, waiting for people to do right by you. You can't keep putting your peace on pause until they come around. You've got to trust, even in their absence, even in their silence, even in their rejection. God is still working. God is still writing your story. God is still defending your name. God is still providing in ways you can't see. And He will do what needs to be done, in His time and in His way. Some of the people who've hurt you, they're not thinking about what they did. They've moved on. They're sleeping fine, but you're still tossing and turning, still wrestling with what they said, what they didn't say, what they did, how they made you feel, and it's exhausting you. But hear me now. Your healing doesn't begin when they say, sorry. Your healing begins the moment you say, God, I give this to you. I can't carry it anymore. There is a holy freedom comes when you stop trying to play God in your own life, when you stop trying to right your own justice, when you stop needing closure from someone who may never give it, when you start saying, Lord, I trust you to handle what I don't understand. It's not weakness, it's strength, it's maturity, it's surrender. Sometimes the reason you're stuck in pain is because you haven't released the people who caused it. You're still holding on, hoping they'll change, waiting for them to act differently, expecting them to come back and fix it. But if they haven't changed by now, if they haven't respected you yet, you've got to stop putting your healing on hold. You've got to stop waiting for someone else to do what God has already given you the power to begin, letting go. When God says He will fight your battles, He means it. When He says vengeance is His, He means two. But He can't fight for you if you're too busy trying to handle it yourself. He can't restore your heart if your hands are full of bitterness. He can't give you peace if your mind is still locked in the prison of resentment. At some point, you've got to drop it. Not because they deserve your silence, not because they earned your release, but because you're tired, because you're ready to live free. Because you've finally realized your peace is worth more than their approval. So, what do you do when you've been disrespected, dishonored, and discarded? You take it to God. You cry if you need to. You lay it down at His feet. And then you rise up and move forward. Not in your own strength, but in His. You let Him hold what you were never meant to carry. Because when you trust God to handle what you cannot control, you walk lighter, you sleep better, and you live stronger.